This is a full course on how to make money from Airbnbs without owning a single property, having any experience, or needing more than $1,000 to get started. This course will help you start earning more income by managing other people's Airbnbs. My name is Preston. I built a $15 million real estate portfolio and earn over $400,000 per year in net profit from my Airbnbs. In this course, we're going to cover what co-hosting is and how it can help you start an Airbnb with minimal investment, how to find clients who will hire you, ways to appear credible even if you have zero experience, a walkthrough of the co-hosting contract, a step-by-step checklist covering everything from setup to management so you can start making money as a co-host immediately, and a whole lot more. And the course I'm sharing is pulled directly from my paid program, but I'm releasing this for free for everyone, so enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome to the Co-hosting Masterclass, where I'll be walking you step by step how to start your own co-hosting business with as little as $1,000. What co-hosting is you're essentially acting as the property manager for another person's Airbnb, making it a completely passive investment for them. All they have to do is collect cash and get their income reports each month. So what does a co-host do? You'll be handling all the pricing, handling guest messages, coordinating with cleaners, handymen, etc. Basically all the day-to-day stuff. Now, most Airbnb investors are old school and they don't have systems and processes in place to make this a mostly passive investment for them. This is where you come in and take that off their plate, and you can charge them a percentage of the gross revenue. Now, most property management companies will charge anywhere from 20 to 40% of the gross revenue to do the day-to-day. And a lot of the times, these property management companies won't assist on the setup of the property. Now, if you came in and offered a full service where you help source the furniture, get it staged, and by the way, you can hire interior designers to do this, and then also help on finding the boots on the ground team, and also managing the day-to-day while charging 10 to 25% of the gross revenue. That's a lot more enticing to these investors. And here's the secret, guys. It should only take you a couple hours per week per property for you to manage. So as you can see, that you can take on a whole bunch of properties without getting overwhelmed. So let's put some numbers behind this so you can see the power behind co-hosting. Let's say you're managing 10 properties that average $50,000 in revenue per year per property. Even if you charge 10% of gross revenue for all 10 properties, the profit you'd be making is $50,000 per year, and it would take you about 20 hours a week on average for all the properties. Now, that's a pretty sweet gig for not a lot of work. And if you start becoming a pro, which you will if you actively manage and learn the strategies that I lay out in this course, and you can start to charge more, let's say 15 to 20, even 25%. And as you start to become good at this, you'll be able to increase your investors' revenue as well. So let's say you're able to bump up those 10 properties to $75,000 in revenue and a 15% revenue split to you. Now you'd be making $112,500 per year on those same properties. So as you can see, you're incentivized to have these properties perform better, since you'll be getting higher pay if you do so. So this sounds great and all, but you're probably thinking of a few questions like, why would an investor let me do this, and how do I find investors in the first place? Now, I'll be answering those questions and go more in depth in later modules, but let's first talk about how I would go about doing the strategy. First, if you go through this entire course, you'll know more than 90% of Airbnb investors out there to optimize their listing, how to automate, and also how to give a great guest experience. So right off the bat, you'll have an advantage. However, most investors won't hand this over unless they feel comfortable that you can actually perform. So in order to gain the trust of these investors, you can give them a trial month or two where you manage their properties for free, or receive a very small percentage split like 5% just to pay for some of your time, and that's completely up to you. Those trial months will be incredibly important for you to show your worth and also optimize their listings and ultimately make them more money. And this is a great strategy as well, because it will give you real life practice on how you can get into this game yourself, eventually either through arbitrage or purchasing Airbnbs. We'll be going more in depth on all of this, but I wanted to give you first an overview of why this strategy can be powerful for those that don't have a lot of money to get started. Finding investors for this business model is the most important part of this entire operation, so I'm going to give you a bunch of different channels for you to search for them. Now, the best part is all of this is free. It'll just take some hustle to do it. I'm going to list on the screen right now how you can find clients. First, let's talk about getting referrals through cleaners, and more specifically, Airbnb cleaners. You can find cleaners through Google, Facebook groups, etc. You want to specifically find cleaners that are working primarily with Airbnb hosts. So what you'll want to do is start reaching out to all these cleaners and make sure that you're keeping track through an Excel spreadsheet. So I have this script that you can use when you reach out to these cleaners. Typically, I start off the conversation introducing yourself, that you're an investor, and that you're looking for a great cleaner with experience cleaning Airbnbs in whatever area that you're going after. So a lot of the time, Airbnb cleaners are working with a lot of Airbnb investors. So essentially, you want to go through and you want to make sure that they're incentivized as well, because a lot of the time, they're not going to want to just hand out the information of all these different clients if there's not something in it for them. So essentially the value prop for them and also the host is that you're going to be maximizing the revenue for everyone involved. And if this is of interest, that they can reach out to you. So you want to make sure after the call that you send them a text with your info, have them introduce you to these different hosts that might be interested in working with you. So from here, you can end the conversation, or you can use my cleaner interview guide to make sure that they're actually a good cleaner as well if you want to potentially use them in the future. And this is important because you want to have a big Rolodex of a lot of cleaners that can be great for you to use in the future. So definitely make sure to give them an interview and see if that they'd be a good fit moving forward for not only this client, but for other clients in the future. Another great place to find investors is through Facebook groups. I'm going to link a few Facebook groups that I personally like that you can use and sign up for. This is a great place to go and network with other investors and just make sure that you're DMing them, adding value, and just see how you can potentially work with them. Now, you don't want to go in here and spam a bunch of posts about, hey, I'm co-hosting. Is there any investor that's interested? You want to provide value and also DM these different people that are active inside the group. Another great place to go is through family and friends. Start talking about what you're doing, that you're going to start a co-hosting business, and kind of explain high level about what you do. And offer them a referral bonus. Let's call it, $750 to $1,000. You can pay them a percentage of the revenue until you pay them back, so you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. Another great place to go is Bigger Pockets forums. So I'm here logged in on my account. If you don't know what Bigger Pockets is, it's essentially a huge network of investors that are into real estate investing. This ranges from topics from short-term rentals, flipping, wholesaling, etc. This is a great site where you can network, you can post on forums, and a lot of people are very helpful on this forums from my experience. Again, you want to start reaching out to people, make some posts, comment on other people's posts as well and add value. And you want to try to expand your network this way as well. Another great place to go is local RIAs. A RIA is a Real Estate Investor Association. There are RIAs across the entire country, and there's probably one in your local area as well. The biggest thing that I found with local RIAs is going to these different meetups so you can start meeting other investors. Now, they might not necessarily be into short-term rentals, but I guarantee you at least one person at those RIAs knows someone else that's into short-term rentals. So start to expand your reach that way as well. You can also go to Airbnb Reddit forums. You can also go to a site like meetup.com, and this is another site where you can go and network with other people with like-minded interests. It's similar to a RIA, but the people might be a little bit different, and if there aren't any in your local area, then you can start one yourself. Now, another great way that I found is start calling real estate brokerages. Now, you want to talk to someone and ask for their best agent that works with short-term rental investors. This is a great way to develop relationships with agents that have short-term rental investors as clients. You can pitch them on what you do, and if they have any clients that are interested, that they can send them your way. And again, you can also offer them a referral bonus like you do with your friends and family. Now, another way that you can find potential clients is pitching landlords for co-hosting. So what you want to do is go on Zillow.com or Facebook Marketplace, and you want to start looking at different rental listings. Now, this is the script that you can use when you reach out to these different landlords. Now, of course, you want to pitch them on the business model, and then you want to also qualify them as well. Now, one of the biggest qualifiers, if they're interested, is if they have enough capital to do this. And remember, this is all coming out of their pocket. You're essentially just acting as an advisor to help them set up this property for Airbnb. So as you start going through and explaining to them exactly what you do, and if they're interested, you want to close by saying that you'll be doing a complimentary analysis of your property, and then you also share with them how much money the property can potentially make. This will always intrigue the landlord, especially if you pitch them correctly. And if you want to know how to analyze properties thoroughly, go to Module 3 in the Airbnb Arbitrage Roadmap section. Now remember, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Keep that in mind. And you also want to make sure that you go through the Finding Your Dream Team modules before you take on any clients. Because if you don't have the solid boots on the ground team, especially if you're doing this remote, then you'll run into a lot of issues later on. Again, I'm going to include all these scripts for you that you can use. So you want to make sure that you go through this, get really comfortable, practice a lot, and then go out there and start making calls. So again, I go through all the common questions that they might ask and also how to answer them. Now again, this takes a lot of hustle, but this is another great way where you can find potential clients. And the best part is they already have the property. So as long as you pitch them the model and show them that they can make a ton of cash flow on top of it, then this is just a no-brainer for them. Now this is more of a long-term play, but another great way to find investors is through creating content on social media. So this isn't a social media course by any means, but in order for you to build trust and at the same time market your services, creating content on social media will be one of the best ways for you to get more clients. Now keep in mind, creating content on social media can be a grind and you won't reap the rewards instantly. In fact, I started posting on social media for my own personal brand in January of 2021, and I really didn't see meaningful traction for a couple of months. However, I committed myself to posting every single day for 90 days, no matter what the outcome was. And the outcome was now I have over 3.4 million followers across all my platforms in a matter of 1.5 years. I highly recommend you not only consume content, but you also study it. There's never been a better time to get your content seen by potentially millions of people. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, etc. all make it so the average person can be seen. The key is to have a strategy, execute, and then analyze the results. Your content will never be perfect. Heck, go look at my first videos and you'll probably get secondhand embarrassment just from watching it. But that's the thing, you just need to get started. Here's the formula that I use in most of my videos. You have the hook, your credibility, the value, and finally the call to action. So let's break this down. The hook is the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video, and it's arguably the most important. Think about it for a second. You either scroll past or stop on a video if the video does a good job of capturing your attention. So I'm going to list on the screen a bunch of the hooks that you can use. And a lot of these hooks are from Rachel Peterson on TikTok. She puts out great content for social media influencers, so make sure to give her a follow if you find this helpful. So for co-hosting in particular, here are a few great hooks that you can use. Here's how you can make X dollars a month on Airbnb in X amount of days. Another hook that you can use is here's how I'm making my client X dollars a month on Airbnb and how you can do it too. Here are the 3 best tips to maximize your Airbnb to outperform your competition. Now those are just a few off the top of my head. And again, a lot of this is trial and error and what fits within your own unique voice. Now the next is credibility. Credibility needs to be a reason why the person should be listening to you. Now it's okay if you don't feel like you have the credibility yet. One thing that I think is important to mention is you want to at least have some experience under your belt before you start posting content. For me, I feel you'll be much more credible and have more things to talk about if you're actually doing it instead of just talking about it. Now of course you can still talk about your journey even if you're new, but it goes a long way if you actually done it and you can provide value. So one way that you can do this is, my name is Preston and I've been able to generate X amount of dollars for my clients in the past X amount of days, weeks, or months. The next is value. The best creators out there are providing real, tangible value in the form of information, entertainment, etc. And if you can do both, even better. This is where trial and error will come into play. Remember, you only have 20 to 60 seconds of a video if you're doing TikTok or IG to pack as much valuable information to the video as possible, so it needs to be concise and to the point. So here's a couple of examples. Some of the ways that I've been able to do this is by optimizing their listings through professional photos like show examples. Another way is through getting 5-star guest reviews like this, and then you, of course, you want to provide proof. So we can be boosted in the algorithm and get more bookings. And finally, the call to action. The call to action is an incredibly important part of this puzzle piece. You could have done the other 3 things perfectly, but if you don't have a clear call to action, then you're potentially losing out on a customer. A call to action can come in the form of asking for a like, a follow, or going to a certain link in your bio, or simply just having them comment on your video, etc. Now, depending on what you want the viewer to do, you can adjust this. So here's an example of a call to action. To learn more about how you can do this too, check the link in bio. Creating content on social media doesn't have to be for co-hosting only. In fact, I highly recommend you switch up your content and not just pigeonhole yourself to talk about just one thing, as it can get really repetitive quick. But to start, if your goal is to get more customers, then you will need to focus more of your content for your ideal customer. Alright, now that we have a good idea on how to find clients, let's talk about why not all clients are created equal. Even if you're starting off, you want to make sure that you look out for any signs that may be a red flag when it comes to working with clients. And yes, even if you have 0 clients right now, I want you to be picky. Because if you aren't careful, these clients can turn a semi-passive investment for you into a nightmare. So let's talk about some of the red flags that you should be aware of. The first one is that they're too stingy with their money. Look, I get it. None of us want to throw away our hard-earned money, but you are the professional here and know what will make or break a property. An easy little tip that I like to use is let them know that you have a discretionary spending of up to $150 before you have to go and ask for their permission. Now, obviously you can get reimbursed for this, but you want to wait for their reaction. If they say that's too much, then it's likely a sign that they're way too stingy with their money, because you don't want to inundate them with every little purchase, as it takes up precious time. You also want to give them an idea of what the furniture will cost based on their space. Now, everyone has a budget in mind, but if it's incredibly small, then it's probably a sign that they just don't have the funds or don't want to properly invest into making their property great. The second thing to look out for is that their house isn't well kept. Now, this is important on a couple levels. Number one, if the property isn't well kept, then it likely means that there will be maintenance issues that arise in the future. Now, obviously things happen and no one can foresee major maintenance or repairs that are needed, but if you can visibly see that the property hasn't been well kept, it means that they're too cheap to invest into their property, and this will lead to bad reviews and issues down the line for guests. The third thing to look out for is that they want to be too involved in the business. You need to be able to sniff this out from the beginning. If they're overly wanting to be involved, this might not be a great fit. They should trust you to handle the management side because you're the professional here. You wouldn't tell a doctor how to do their job, so why should they tell you what to do? Now, obviously some clients will want to add their feedback, which is totally fine. It is their money in-house after all. But if they're wanting to enforce a bunch of restrictive rules, they second guess your ideas, etc., then this could cause a lot of headaches down the line. Number 4, they won't allow you to manage the payments. This is important and this should be considered a deal breaker if the client doesn't agree to this. Now, it can get messy if they are the ones collecting the payments, as most won't be on top of the bookkeeping, and there's occasional horror stories of them not paying out your portion. This will also show their level of trust. If they don't trust you to do this, then there might be additional concerns that you may need to resolve. Now, there might be some people, no matter what you say, that won't allow you to manage the payments, and this is totally okay. You just need to move on. If they trust you enough to watch out for their house, then they should trust you on the payments as well. And the 5th thing to look out for is they have unrealistic expectations. Now, again, you want to sniff this out before you get into an agreement. Lay out the expectations. As the property ramps up, it's likely it will take a couple of weeks to a couple of months for the property to stabilize and start seeing profits. Usually you can be profitable right out of the gate, but you need to set the expectation that they likely won't be seeing thousands of dollars in cash flow right away. If they have pie in the sky expectations, then it's likely a sign that they won't be a good fit. Now, these are the biggest red flags that I've seen when it comes to working with clients. Now, remember, just because someone is interested in working with you doesn't mean you should take them on as a client. If you follow the steps laid out here, just know that you will find clients. Just be patient and vet them as much as they vet you. In this business, you'll typically work with two different types of clients, so let's talk about each of them. First are the investors. Now, generally speaking, these will be some of the best clients you work with as long as you're making them money. They just want to make sure that it's profitable and passive for them. There are some things that you have to do differently with this type of client. When it comes to larger maintenance issues, you can offer to call around and find someone who can get you the best deal, as they're typically more price conscious. Now, investors are usually busier, so if you do this for them, they'll greatly appreciate it and they'll want to keep you around for the long haul. It goes a long way to show that you're there for them, and remember, investors usually don't stop at just one or two houses. If you help them make this a true passive income stream for them, then they'll likely purchase more homes or give you more business down the line, making you more money. So the second type of clients are the live-in owners, or they have 1 or 2 properties. Now, these types of owners can be a mixed bag, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't work with them. They will typically rent out their mother-in-law suites, additional dwelling units, or maybe 1 or 2 of their rental properties. Now, if they're living on the property, you want to be extra sensitive to the guests you accept and don't. Of course, you should do this for all your guests, but you especially want to do this for these clients. These are the screening questions that I like to ask the guest up front. So we say, thank you for your interest in our property. To ensure that our property will be a great fit for you and your group, can you please answer the following questions? So what this will do is ensure that they're going to be a good fit for the property. You also want to reiterate multiple times throughout your messaging sequence and also place signs on the house that say no smoking, as this is a common violation that you'll see. So these types of owners can be a bit stingy on cost too, so you want to make sure up front that they understand the cost expectations before you do business with them. If you find any red flags, as I've listed earlier in this module, then I would recommend dropping them as a client. But keep in mind that a lot of these live-in owners and investors will have a lot of questions at first, and that's okay, especially if this is the first time doing something like this. After a month, it'll get better, but if it doesn't, then that's when you should look into terminating the agreement with them. So one of the most important aspects of co-hosting is becoming credible, especially if you don't have a client yet. So in this module, we'll talk about how you can become credible. Now, in my mind, these things are absolutely necessary in order to run a co-hosting business, so I highly recommend you do these before you start. So the first thing is to get an LLC set up. I have an in-depth module that goes over how to set up an LLC in module 1, so make sure to go check that out. The next thing is to set up a website. I'm here at card.co, and it's the easiest way that I've found to build a website. Now, I'm a complete noob when it comes to building websites, and it's completely out of my comfort zone, but it's something that even I'm able to do. You can get a free domain, but it'll have card in the URL. So here are their plans. It's pretty affordable. I mean, it ranges anywhere from $9 to $49 per year. So I would just go ahead and just pick one of these. The pro standard should be enough to get everything going that you need. Now, this helps so much in helping your credibility and having a domain that looks professional. If you want to get rid of the card here in the URL, then you want to go to a domain and hosting service like GoDaddy or Google Domains and follow the directions there. They usually walk you through how to do it step by step, and I highly recommend going with Google Domains as it's been the most user-friendly from my experience. And the reason you want to do this is because you'll be able to create a custom domain and you won't have the card.co here in the URL. And I'm going to leave a link to a YouTube video on how to use Google Sites to create a website with the domain if you want to learn how to do that. Now again, this is super easy to do. This is just a template that I've been working on, so let me show you what it looks like here. So first, you want to tell people what you do, okay? So, you're going to be, Nashville's premier property management group, let's say. So the next thing you want to do is you want to list out your testimonials. So to start, you can just use your friends or family or someone that can just vouch for you, because testimonials are going to go a long way to, establishing that credibility. From here, you can list out your spaces, and here you can just use stock photos if you don't have any properties currently to give the clients and also potential prospects of what your property will look like once it's all complete. The reason I really like this is because you don't need to know any coding. You just literally just click on this and just type in what you want it to be called. So let's say your property management company is called Airbnb, so you click done. You can add, a bunch of lists, buttons, links, videos, images. Again, this makes it super dummy proof. Even again, I can do this, and I am not savvy when it comes to, coding and building websites at all. So if I can do this, so can you. So once you go in here and customize this is what the website's going to look like when it's live. So as you can see, the graphics are really cool. It looks clean. This is a property of ours that we use in the background here, so you can learn more. And again, you can customize all these buttons, and also, as you scroll through here, if this is a site that I saw of someone that wanted to co-host, then, this looks like a legitimate website. And again, this website isn't perfect by any means, so I would definitely add a few more things here, just make it, a little bit better, depending on what you want your branding to look like. But again, this is just a quick example of something that you can do to build more credibility, okay? Another place I like to go is namechecker.com. What this will do is it'll scrub all the different sites just to see if your handle is actually available on all these different sites. So let's say we want to look at Black Bear B&B, and as you can see here, it's available on most sites except for this .org. So this might be important for you if you want to have the same handle across all your sites again. So this is just a cool tool if you want to use to see if your site's available and also your handles on different websites. Now again, the reason why you want want to have a site is because, especially if you're co-hosting, you won't have a lot of skin in the game. So you want to do the upfront work to show that you're a legitimate business. And again, this isn't the only place where you can go to build a site. You can go to WordPress, Wix, even Squarespace. There's a bunch of other sites that are a lot more technical if you're into that thing or if you have experience doing that. So, again, you can do whatever that works best for you. If you want to get a logo, you can go on a site like Fiverr. It's pretty straightforward. You just search for, logo maker and then find someone that has a style you're looking for. This shouldn't cost more than, $20. This is a site that I go to all the time for, different things that I need, like logos and things like that. So this step in creating a website is important to show your credibility, but I don't want you spending weeks or even days creating a logo on a website. It should be simple, functional, and to the point so you can get started. All right, so in this module, I'm going to share with you how to audit an existing listing and also things to look out for a potential property that you'll be co-hosting. Now, I like to give free audits to homeowners that have raised interest in you potentially co-hosting their property. These clients will usually already have an Airbnb listing, but they might be struggling with it. So this audit usually takes less than 10 minutes. So it's something that I just do for free, but you can go ahead and charge a small fee if you want. So here's a random listing that I found on Airbnb. So let's just go through this listing and share with you my thoughts. All right, so first and foremost, this is going to be their main photo that people will see. And as you can see that they haven't taken professional photos. Now, this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people doing is they want to cheap out on spending a couple $100 on professional photos. And it really does make the world a difference. So first and foremost, we need to get professional photos taken. And the second thing I noticed is that the furniture is really outdated. And again, that is going to be another huge differentiator that you can do to stand out on Airbnb is to update the furniture. The bones of it looks pretty good. I mean, the ceilings, we got the vaulted ceilings. We got these beams here that look cool. We got this cool fireplace that we could use as an accent wall. Overall, the bones of the property look good, but the furniture has to go. And also the photos are just, absolutely horrible. And honestly, the photos look like they've been taken on an early 2000s camera phone. So the next thing I'll do is go to their calendar and see if they have dynamic pricing on. If you have dynamic pricing on, it'll update depending on supply and demand. So for this listing, it looks like they don't have it because as you click through these different dates, the price stays the same. And this is something that they're losing thousands of dollars on every single year. So that's another thing that you can look at. And of course, make sure that you keep notes while you do this. So I also like to look at how I can make this property stand out. You want to look at things like, updating furniture like we touched on. Is there a game room, murals, a hot tub, things like that, which can, really set you apart from the competition or, add an amenity that your other competition has to make it look better and also get more clicks and drive more revenue. So those are other things that I look at. So for this property here, I would look to, maybe add like a fire pit in the backyard. It looks like we already have some sort of game room here. Even potentially a hot tub would be something that could make this property stand out even more, okay? I would really try to highlight this fireplace. So try to paint it a different accent color to make it really pop in pictures. Those are a couple of things off the top of my head. So another thing I do is I go to the reviews and I look to see, what people are saying. It looks like this guest has some pretty good reviews here so far. Not a lot to change here. Probably, there's always going to be stuff about cleaning. I mean, it looks like they're doing pretty good there, but again, you always want to come through the reviews and see what their guests are saying because these can be legitimate concerns that you can come in and fix pretty easily. So in the scenario that the cleanliness wasn't good, what I would do is, I would vet other cleaners and also handymen if there's like repairs or maintenance issues that people are complaining about. Bringing in a complete set of new cleaners and handymen can make a world of difference when it comes to an Airbnb listing. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. Another thing I like to do is I like to research the competition and see what others are charging. So can you increase the price or change the pricing depending on the time of year? So obviously I can't get the address here unless I booked it. So what you want to do next, and you're going to have the address because, you're talking to these landlords anyway. So the next thing you want to do is get their address and then you want to run their comps on data.rabu.com. And what you're going to want to do is see if there's a possibility to increase their prices as is, or if they added some amenities, if we could increase their prices that way. You want to come in here, filter by guests. So let's say, your place could sleep up to 16 guests. We'll increase the max radius. And then let's look at if they were able to add a hot tub, what that would do to their revenue. Okay, so you want to click on this listing here. This looks like a pretty cool property. All right, so this person is charging $486 at 70% occupancy rate. So it looks like they've added a few amenities. So, for example, if this was a comparable listing, adding a hot tub and adding a fire pit or even adding an arcade, if that would increase the revenue, then that's something that I would suggest to the owners that they could do. So the main thing you want to do here is you want to look at the competition and look at the top performers and see how they're standing out. If you can, copy them and if you're near them, that's something that you can replicate their average daily rate and also their occupancy rate, and you can, really start charging more just by adding a few amenities. Now, again, it might not always be feasible to compete with those unless they invest tens of thousands of dollars unless of course they're willing to do that. But again, it's good to get an idea if they add a few amenities, if they can really bump up their rate significantly. So the next thing I like to do is look at their description. So I'm a big believer in having a 3 to 4 sentence highlight of your property here. And as you can see, I mean, this is a decent description at the top, but this is something where you really want to paint the picture and sell the property, okay? And another thing that I want to do after is have a bullet point list of your space. So I'm going to show you an example from one of my listings, but again, this is just too wordy. A lot of the times people just want it to be short and sweet and to the point. And if it's too wordy like this, then it's just going to be hard to read. So we're here at one of my properties, and this is how I like to do my listings, okay? So I like to, again, paint the picture, right? You want to make so that they can envision themselves and their family being at your property. And of course, I have my bullet point list here. So it just kind of gives a high level snapshot of exactly what they can expect with the listing. And then if they want to learn more about it, then they can come down here and expound about, the actual property itself. And again, this is something that you want to, paint a story. You don't want to just list a bunch of, random things. You want to make it easy to read, paint a story, and as they can scroll through, they can really look and get a feel for exactly what the property has to offer. So once you audit the listing, you don't have to give them everything that you find. In fact, it's better that you don't. Now, the reason for this is most guests have put in a lot of work, and if you list a bunch of reasons their listing is awful, they might get offended and be less likely to work with you. So what I typically like to say when auditing a listing is this. So you want to say something like, so first of all, homeowner, your property looks great, and you've clearly put a lot of thought and effort into it. So after my audit, I did find a few ways that me and my team can really optimize several aspects of it. This includes X, Y, Z. So you can, say high level topics like optimizing your pricing, adding features to help your property stand out based on what your competition is doing, etc. I'd be happy to take this property on and help you maximize your revenue and make this a completely passive investment for you. So you want to take this approach and you'll be way more successful when it comes to securing properties. All right, now that we've talked about how to audit a property that's already listed on Airbnb, let's talk about someone that doesn't have their property listed. Now, not all properties are created equal, and in fact, they might not always perform well. I'm going to leave a link to the module in the comments on how to use data.rabu.com to analyze your potential clients' properties. But first, let's talk about a few things that I always look out for before taking on a property. Number one, is there a way for you to make this property stand out? Again, data.rabu.com can show you other comparable properties in the area. You want to take a look at the top performing properties and see what kind of amenities they have to stand out. Is that an amazing view? Is it close to the beach or lake? Do they have a hot tub? Maybe they have a pool, a game room, a theme throughout, etc. Now, these are all important things that you need to look out for. If you can't find a way to really make this property stand out, it might not generate the kind of cash flow that you're looking for, or what the homeowner is looking for. The next thing I look at is the layout of the house. Sometimes clients will want an Airbnb a part of their home. Think mother-in-law suites, additional dwelling units, etc. So some things that you want to look out for these clients. Number one, you typically won't be able to charge as much on an ADU or a mother-in-law suite, and obviously this means less money for you. But don't look at this as a complete deal breaker, as sometimes having the owners on site can save you headaches in terms of getting things resolved quickly and so on. Another thing that you want to look at are there any shared spaces? If there are shared spaces, I personally wouldn't work with them, since it'll be a safety concern and just an overall worse experience for everyone involved. And by shared spaces, I mean mainly inside the home, not necessarily outside. Of course, the owner and the guest might have to share a driveway sometimes, but if there's a dedicated parking space for the guest, even better. So you want to make sure that there are separate entrances. You also want to consider if there's a separate kitchen or kitchenette and washer and dryers, because this can greatly affect your occupancy rates and revenue depending on where the property is located if you don't have these amenities. If you're remote, then you can do this all via FaceTime, but if you're local, definitely go and meet the homeowner in person. Okay, so once you receive interest from the client, you'll want to do a deep dive into their property to see if their property will actually perform well as a short-term rental. Now, it's good to quickly identify if it's going to make money. If it isn't, then you should just let them know that it might not be the best fit and then move on. There's no point going through all the work if the property isn't going to be profitable. So to get all the info on how to research and analyze properties, go to section 3 of the Airbnb Arbitrage Roadmap video course. So we're going to use my co-hosting calculator to determine your fee and also present these numbers to the client. And you can download this calculator in the comments of this video. So this is just going to be an example walkthrough of how I use this calculator, okay? So here on the left, this is the bedroom and also the common space count. And you want to update this depending on how many bedrooms and how many common spaces that the landlord has in their property. And if you hover over these, this will show you what this is. For common spaces, it's just going to be a living room, game room, outside patio, etc. And it's important to fill these out, as these numbers will pull into these just to get an idea of what the client will have to pay for their initial investment. So in this middle column here, you can put the purchase price of what they purchased the property for or what they're going to purchase the property at. If they already own the property, then typically you can just leave the zero. But if you do that, you want to make sure if they have a mortgage on the property, that you put the mortgage, the principal and interest portion here. But if you go this route, then this cap right here isn't going to pull in, and there's a couple other calculations that won't pull in. But that's not really important, because what they really want to know is what their cash on cash return is going to be depending on their initial investment, which we're going to go over here in a second. So the estimated repair costs, obviously, if they want to, add in murals, if they want to update fixtures, if they just need to make, different repairs, then that's where you would put this in. So startup costs will typically be interior designers, handyman to install, smart locks or Ring cameras, and also cleaners to deep clean and also get supplies to get it all set up, and of course the furniture as well. So once you do all that, this will be their total initial investment, and they come over here on the right, and depending on the comps that you find, you're going to want to put in the average daily rate and also the occupancy rate. Again, go to section 3, the research and analysis of the Airbnb Arbitrage roadmap video course, and you want to get these numbers as accurate as possible and don't inflate these numbers. You want to give the homeowner a realistic point of view of what their property can generate, and then come in here and plug in all the expenses, and the homeowner should have these numbers handy just to get a more accurate representation of what their expenses are going to be each month. And if they have a mortgage, you want to plug in their principal and interest payment each month right here, and then plug in your property management fees. And for this example, if you charge a 15% management fee, you'd be getting just under $1,000 per month for managing this property. And you can change this property management fee depending on what you and the client work out. And remember, your fee is based off the gross nightly rate. This doesn't include the cleaning fees, and it's not included in your payout, and you want to mention that to the homeowner. And speaking of cleaning fees, you'll notice that the cleaning fee isn't included in the expenses here. And that's because the guest pays for it, and so I just call it a wash and don't include that at all in the expenses. And then you'll want to explain to them why or why not their property will do well. So in this scenario, this property will give them just over $1,200 a month in passive income at a 74% cash on cash return. Now, most homeowners aren't savvy, so you need to give them some context to this number. And the cash on cash return is the amount of income that you get back based on the money that you put in. So for example, the stock market has a historical return of about 8%, and most investors are happy with a 12% cash on cash return for their long-term rentals. So their cash on cash return in this example is 74% for essentially doing nothing. And this will be really appealing for them because these cash on cash returns blow anything else out of the water. And you want to make sure that you get good at explaining the benefits, not just handing them the spreadsheet and then hope to have them figure it out. And if you click on here on the 10-year projected numbers, this will also show them exactly, what they can expect from a cash flow perspective. And if you want to get them an idea of what their appreciation and also the equity position is going to be, you want to make sure that you plug in the purchase price at what they bought it for and all these numbers here. And all those numbers will plug into here. Because we don't have that here, it's not going to pull in right now. But this will also give them a good idea of all the returns that they're going to give. So let's just do a quick example with these numbers plugged in. And if they want to understand all this mortgage breakdown, tax savings, and total return on investment, then what they can do is plug in their purchase price originally that they had for this property. So let's call it $400,000. Let's say they got it at a 5% interest rate. And of course, because the monthly principal and interest is going to pull in from here, we want to take it out here out of the expenses. So this number will update, and then they can come in here and see what their total tax savings are, their total ROI, if they want to go all the way back to what they had actually put down for this property plus the furniture costs. So once you get all these numbers, walk them through in person or via Zoom, as this will help them clearly see how their investment will perform. All right, let's talk about insurance. The clients that you work with will need to get short-term rental insurance if they decide to work with you, and know their standard homeowner's insurance policy and even a landlord insurance policy won't make the cut. My preferred insurance broker is Proper Insurance. So this is their site right here. They have the best plans and coverage in the short-term rental space. You can definitely shop around, but from my experience, they're the industry leader here. It's also very important that the homeowner adds you as an additional insured, and you want to make sure that you verify this. This will protect you in case something happens and a guest tries to come after you. This is all laid out in the co-hosting agreement that I'll be sharing in a later module, but make sure that you enforce this with the homeowner. It's also imperative that you ask these questions to your insurance agent, even if you're working with Proper Insurance. And here are the questions that I like to ask. First is, if I have a paying short-term rental guest for a period of less than 30 days at a time, and that guest happens to damage or steal my property, do I have property coverage? So you want to make sure that they say yes. And if they give you a gray area answer, then you want to make sure that you find coverage until they say yes. And the second question is, if I have a paying short-term rental guest for a period of less than 30 days at a time, and that guest happens to get injured on my property, do I have liability coverage? And again, you want to make sure that they say yes, because if they say anything other than that, then it probably means that you don't have the coverage. Now keep in mind that Airbnb and VRBO's $1 million insurance does usually pay out, but it's mainly to protect them. You want to have this insurance policy as the main one and have that as a backup plan. Besides, the owner is paying for it, and if they ask about Airbnb or VRBO's coverage, you'll want to explain to them that it's mainly to protect them in case something happens, and there isn't a guarantee that they're going to pay out. You can also have them speak to your insurance agent, and they can answer any of those types of coverage questions as well. And I'm going to attach Proper Insurance's coverage that you can look over after this video. All right, so here are the tools you'll need to operate this business. And I've created modules on a few of these in the main section of the Airbnb Arbitrage course, where you can go back and watch those. So let's talk about the first one, which is HelloSign. HelloSign is an e-signature tool that you can use to get documents signed. This is especially important with your co-hosting agreement. So the first 3 signatures are free per month, and you likely won't need more than that at this point. You can also pay for Adobe Sign or DocuSign as well. So it's really easy. All you have to do is drag and drop. So if you want to use this agreement here. So once that's done uploading, you can click next. So let's say you want to send it to Preston. You can add their name and email here. Now I'm not going to fill this all out as I'll be going over the contract in depth later, but you can just come in here and fill in the blanks and just make sure to add a spot where you can sign the document and make sure that they sign before you do. So you can drag and drop where you want signatures. You can also come here and put a text box if you want, them to fill out certain things. It's really intuitive, drag and drop here. So this is one of the reasons why I really like this tool. So once that's all done, click next, and then you just create the document title and then you send it for signature. If you're collecting payments, which I highly recommend you do, you need to make sure that you're keeping track of income being paid to your clients so you can track taxes and report those numbers. So I use HelloSign because you'll need to be sending out a W-9 to your clients that you work with. A W-9 is an IRS tax form that your client will need to fill out to verify their name, their address, and also their tax ID number as they'll be receiving income. The info taken from that W-9 will be used to generate a 1099 tax form, which is required for income tax filing purposes. So you can just type in Google the W-9 form and then you'll get this document here. It's completely free. And then once you download it, go back here to HelloSign, and then you want to just drag and drop here and then wait for this to upload. So once that's done uploading, click next. And again, you just want to write in the person's email address. And then I typically will just pre-exist and I'll include this here. So the main things they'll need to fill out is the name here, and then they'll have to check if it's an LLC, partnership, and of course they want to make sure that they put in their EIN or their social security number if they're just going to be doing their own personal name. And then come in here and then just do the sign and date. And again, you can just drag in the signatures here and then also the text box depending on where they need to fill that out. Super easy. Click next and then make sure that they sign this before you start working with them. So QuickBooks, I'm going to be going in depth on how I use this later in this course. And of course, Price Labs, I've already done a video on this, including Guesty for Hosts and also AirDNA that you can go check out in the Airbnb Arbitrage roadmap part of this course. All right, so let's walk through the key points of this co-hosting contract that you will need to have your client sign before moving forward. This agreement has been vetted by a lawyer and has gone through refinements as well. There are certain items you can remove or add, but from my experience, this has gone over really well. So let's talk through the key points now. So just to clarify, the recipient is going to be the client and then the contractor is going to be you. So you want to fill out their names and then your names here. So the description of services here, you will want to make sure that they understand that they'll be responsible for purchasing all the furniture, the decor, and also the supplies. We typically offer that we'll coordinate with the interior designers to help stage and all that. And I highly recommend you do this since you'll save a lot of headaches on logistics and also designing the place. And if they don't want to pay for an interior designer, you can let them know you have recommended furniture lists that are in this course that they can use, but they'll be responsible for receiving and setting it all up. So here you want to make sure that you choose the photographer because this is where the money is made and where most people like to skimp out. So this right here just basically makes sure that you're responsible for the design and also creation of the listing. Now, like I've mentioned earlier, you want to be in control of managing the listings and don't want the client to have access to just one platform and you another. You want to make sure that you're managing all the listings. So for example, you don't want your client to be in charge of VRBO and then you Airbnb. It's really just going to muddy the waters and make it much harder for everyone. And this just lays out that you're going to be managing the dynamic pricing. And this just says that you're going to be working with the cleaners and also coordinating with them as they are the most important member of your team. So post-launch here, these are all just the items that a property manager would be responsible for. All these items will need to be paid by the client, but you'll be the one coordinating it. So this includes supplies, maintenance, etc. It doesn't say anywhere that you'll be available 24/7 to call and give them weekly updates. Now that doesn't mean that you should go radio silent on them. You can still give them updates here and there, especially at the end of the month is when you'll be checking in on them and giving them the financial reports and such. But your time is incredibly valuable and you want to ensure that you treat your time like gold. You can direct them to the contract if they ask about that. And if they're abusing your time and constantly asking for updates, you can just direct them to the contract and let them know that this isn't something that you agreed to, but you'd be happy to bill them hourly if that's something they absolutely need. I want to also reiterate that all payouts should be paid out to your account. And from there, you'll be taking the revenue percentage and then any expenses that are accrued during that month and then send the rest of the payouts to the client. And I highly recommend you go this route because number one, this is how traditional property managers work. And number two, it makes it much harder to track all the debits and credits, and chasing the client down is never fun and causes more stress and headaches for you. If this is a deal breaker for the client, then you'll just want to move on to the next because this isn't a client that you'll want to work with. So these are additional stipulations that lay out who's paying for what. You also want to make sure that you add in here that you have the right to purchase smaller items up to a certain amount. In this case, it's $100 without the owner's approval. The reason behind this is there are a lot of smaller items that need to be purchased in this business, and you don't want to be sitting for sometimes days for the owner to get back to you. And make sure you're saving receipts and tracking them through QuickBooks. It makes it super easy where you take a picture and you can upload them into QuickBooks pretty seamlessly. And the rest of this stuff is pretty common sense. Payment for services, this is where you'll need to figure out the comfort level of the client and what they will agree on. If this is your first client, it might be worth taking a smaller commission to prove your worth and then get testimonials, which will help immensely in getting more clients down the line. Then you can up the percentage after a certain amount of months. Additional fees, this is to protect you and also goes back to the clients that don't respect your time and want constant updates. You want to be firm with them that you'll be charging for unnecessary hours thrown at you. So the duration of services here, this will vary from person to person. I like to do a minimum of 6 months that they have to work with you. And this is to ensure that you can get everything ramped up, especially if you're in more of a seasonal market where you might be signing this contract at the slowest months. Ideally, I would try and do a year so you get a fair shot, but this will be up to you and the client. This section here is where the client might have some issues. It basically states that you have the right to cancel a contract before the end of the 12 months, but they don't. If they raise a stink about this, just let them know that the reason you do this is because you don't charge a setup fee. You need to be given enough time to actually earn back the amount of time and effort that you put into setting this up for them. If they want the right to terminate earlier, they can just let them know that you can add that you'll be charging $1,000 setup fee or something along those lines. This usually gets them to say, okay, that's fine. It's really funny how that works. Everything else on here is just legal jargon that is necessary, so you can read through this if you want. But overall, that's the gist of this agreement. And at the bottom here is a signature page, and you want to make sure that they sign it before you do. Okay, that's really important. So in this module, I'm going to walk you through step by step exactly how to set up each client's listing on Airbnb. So there are 3 ways to approach this, and I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of each. So the first way is to put all the listings on your account and then adding owners as a co-host. Now this will give them access to see the activity on the listing and also send them messages and so on. Basically everything that an admin can do, except for they won't have access to the resolution center or the financials. The biggest con here is that your other clients are now exposed to one or more clients that want to try and take control of their own listings. And I'm going to tell you why this can affect everyone's listings, including your own if you have any. So let's say an owner comes in and decides knowingly or unknowingly that they are going to cancel all upcoming bookings or start messaging guests without your permission. This can get rid of your superhost status almost immediately, and this will affect every other client's listings as well. The pros are it's easier to manage and you're getting all the reviews to your account, which will help boost your other listings. I only recommend this route if the owner doesn't care about being added as a co-host, and this is the preferred way in my opinion, but let's talk about the next 2. The second way is to add yourself as a co-host on the owner's account. The biggest cons to this method is it can get really complicated and messy to manage. You'll also need to get the credentials for the owner's main account in order to get access to the resolution center and the financials. Another con is that if you're listed as a co-host, the reviews you receive won't count towards you becoming a superhost. The only pro for this model is that your other clients are protected from one owner that might go crazy and destroy your superhost status. Now let's talk about the third and final option, the hybrid model. So with this method, when you onboard a new client, you'll want to create a brand new Gmail address to create a brand new Airbnb listing, regardless if they already have a listing or not. And if you haven't already, you should have one main Gmail account dedicated for your co-hosting business. And as you onboard new clients, create a new Gmail account for each client and then forward those emails you receive to your main Gmail account. I'm going to leave a link below on instructions on how to forward your emails. You want to do this so you aren't constantly checking several different accounts and it will all forward to the same one email. And by the way, you will want to make sure that you have created an Airbnb account with your main Gmail account. And from there, use your main Gmail account and add yourself as a co-host. Now with this model, I highly recommend you don't add your owners as co-hosts because same thing applies in the first method. They can still come in and mess up their own listing and kill your superhost status. However, with this method, it'll only be their own they'll be sabotaging, but you still want to make sure that only you have access. The cons for this is that it takes a bit longer on the initial setup and you won't be getting reviews counted towards your account. The pros are you can use this as a selling point to your owners when you first start working with them. And you can say that if they decide not to work with you anymore, that all the reviews will transfer over to them. And of course, the other clients are protected as well. So all in all, out of the 3 I've listed here, I recommend going with 1 or 3, but lean more towards 1 if the owner simply doesn't care about being added as a co-host. Bookkeeping is one of the things that I personally dread the most, but it's incredibly important to keep on top of your books in any business. This will show you how your property is doing and you can get an idea of exactly what's coming in and out of your business. Especially in this co-hosting model, as you'll need to send the correct amount to your clients each month. So I personally like using QuickBooks Online because it makes it super easy and a lot of the things can be automated. It's about $50 per month per business, but it's honestly well worth the price. I'm going to walk you through how I use it in order to generate reports each month for clients. So first and foremost, I would have your client set up an account on QuickBooks Online and they can add you as an accountant. This is so you can access the account and reconcile transactions. And they'll also be able to view what's coming in, what's going out. So in order to do that, you just come up here, manage users, and then just come up here and add user here. Now obviously you can hire the bookkeeping out eventually as you scale, but to start, it's really not as hard as you might think. For your client, they're going to have to spend $50 a month for this software, and that'll just be another expense line item moving forward. And I also highly recommend you get QuickBooks Online for your side of the business, as this is going to make invoicing your clients and keeping track of your expenses and revenue much easier. And you're going to also thank yourself come tax season. What you'll need to do is set aside a few hours out of the month in order to reconcile all your receipts, expenses, and income. But again, QuickBooks helps automate a lot of that work. So first, go to Business Overview and go to Bank Accounts over here and then connect to the accounts that your client wants to use. This is super easy. They can do this themselves. What you have to do is come here, connect accounts. All they have to do is search their bank account and connect it. And they can also connect a credit card if that's how they want to make purchases. Okay, once that's done, let me walk you through how to send an invoice from your company to your client so that you can add that as an expense on your client's QuickBooks. Now, since you're collecting all the payments yourself, you can just deduct your commission fee from the total revenue and leave it in your account, assuming you're using the same account. But you still want to make sure that you invoice the client so they can track on their side and on your side for tax purposes. In order to create an invoice, I like to use Canva to create it. Now, I'm sure there's some way to do it in QuickBooks, but I just like to use Canva just because it's easy. So I'm just logged in here to my account, and again, this is free as well. So you want to just come in here and just type in a receipt invoice template. and then it'll just populate all these different options here for you. So you just want to make it super simple, okay? So once you pick a template, let's say you made $1,000 for your cut for the month. So you'll want to invoice to your client. So let's just say that their company name is Short Term Rental LLC. And then since you'll be paying yourself, you can just add a text in here that says paid. So from here, we'll go back to QuickBooks and for the client and then upload this into their portal. So what you're going to want to do is come back here to bookkeeping, and I have the invoice here that I'm going to upload now. So once that's done uploading, you want to click on review here. So you want to come over here and categorize it as a receipt. And then from here, I will put this under cash. And then category here, you can just put commission fees, which is down here at the bottom right here. So once that $1,000 enters your account in QuickBooks, it should automatically categorize as revenue. So you should be good on your end. So from here, save and next. And then this should be created as an expense here. So let's talk about how to generate a profit and loss report for the client. This is the only report that I typically share with the clients unless they ask otherwise. It should give them everything they need in order to see how their property did for that particular month. So what you're going to want to do here is go back to business overview, then click on profit and loss here. For the dates here, let's do July of 2022. And I like to set it to cash accounting method. The difference between cash basis and accrual basis comes down to timing. If you record revenue and expenses when you pay or receive money, then you'll use cash basis. If you do it when you get a bill or an invoice, then it's accrual. So run the report, and then as you come down here, you should see the commission and fees here. That's $1,000 for your payment. So from here, just download it, email it, or whatever you need to do to send it over to your client. It's really as simple as that. You can also generate income reports through Guesty. So this is just one of my Guesty accounts. First, you want to go to menu, and then you scroll down here to income reports, and then come over here to create income report, and then you can choose which property you want to create it for. Then you'll want to choose the payout model here. So what this means is that you're going to get paid by all the channels, and then you take your cut and then pay the rest to the client. And again, as I've said already 1,000 times, I highly recommend you go this route. And then I choose net payout with cleaning fee, meaning that you collect the cleaning fee and then you pay the cleaners directly. And then here, depending on your percentage split, you can just drag this bar here. So let's say your split was 20%. So you choose 80% here, and then hit continue, and then put your income report name here and then confirm. Then it shows you a breakdown of your earnings. So you want to scroll to the bottom here, and then you can choose preview payout statement. So from here, let's say you paid for certain things out of pocket for that month. Make sure you keep track of all that in a spreadsheet or in QuickBooks, and then you can add that here for more accurate reporting. So if you paid for, let's say, some new towels and sheets, that cost you $100, so you can put towels and sheets. And you want to make sure that you put negative 100 here to indicate that the client gets $100 less since you paid for that. So then you want to add the client, so you'll need to get their name and email, and then click this to generate the payout statement, and this will just show you a breakdown of exactly how much money they made there. So you can generate this payout statement, and then you can send this along with the P&L from QuickBooks.